Welcome to Friendly Station. I'm Desire Mia, and today we have our very first guest, Brad Fish Anderson. And boy oh boy, this was a very interesting profile interview. What a genuine soul. And honestly, the world could use more people like Brad Fish. And to some extent, I feel as though his podcast, Out of the Fishbowl, is an extension of who he is and a way to help people live out their faith. And by the way, there might be some background noise coming from my side. How very mischievous of me. But all around, this was a great friendly session. So please enjoy Brad Fish Anderson. Hey, this is Desire Mia.
And Ntokozo Mloto.
And this is
Friendlyzation.
Welcome to Friendlyzation.
Thanks, Desire. So good to be here.
I just wanted to start out by saying or asking you if you prefer me to say Brad Fish Anderson or should I say Mr. Brad Fish Anderson, because I have to respect the seniority here.
Definitely not Mr. So Brett is fine, Fish is fine, Brett Fish, any combination of those, whatever you feel comfortable with, but not Mr. I know I'm old, but I like to still pretend.
All right, no problem. So I did a bit of digging on you in preparation for
That's
this
always
podcast.
dangerous.
And I discovered, and by digging, I went onto your website, which you provided for us to go look. And I found that, the fish in your name, Brad Fish, stands for, it's an acronym for Faithful in Serving Him. Were you given that from birth, or was it a name you gave yourself?
Yeah, a bit of the second thing, but quite interesting because I always wanted a nickname. I never really had one.
Okay.
And then when I was in teachers training college about 100 years ago, we were working on this group project where we had to design a new country and a map, and our country was in the shape of the fish. And so people started calling me Fish. And then the following year, I was on a Baptist music and drama team thing, and we sat down and came up with the acronym Faithful in Serving Him. And because I did a lot of speaking and a lot of writing,
Yes.
Brett Fish became kind of my name. A lot of people think my last name is Fish, and some people think my first name is Fish. But I love the reminder for me. I've got it tattooed on my arm.
Whoa, and it does say
Faithful in
fish.
serving him. And yeah, let me give you a better view.
Let me take a picture.
The writing is not amazing. But just a daily reminder that I must try be faithful in serving him, and the him is Jesus, and the focus on loving people and seeking justice is really the heart of it. So it's a good nickname to have in terms of it keeps leading me towards that thing, hopefully.
Very interesting nickname, and thank you for the backstory. My nickname was, or I think it still is, Bones, and the reason for that is way back in high school I used to watch a lot of episodes on the series called Bones. The lady is called Bones as well, so ironically. And she was a forensic anthropologist who, in the show, she used to solve crimes by looking at the bones. She was this big sciencey type of intelligent woman. And so I would go back to school after watching it and I'll tell people, this is what happened on this episode and that and that. And so that's how I also became associated with that nickname Bones. But well, listen, Fish is miles ahead of where my nickname comes from. All right, so let's talk the Out of the Fishbowl podcast. I found that in the podcast, you sort of like go into more reflective subject matters. You focusing on reflection, and one specific episode, A Quiet Pace, where you talk mostly or somewhat refer to phones taking over our moments, that we lose the perception of time. So why is it important for you to be reflective?
Yeah, time is something that we only have so much of, right? People say I don't have the time. No, you do have the time, but how do you choose to use it? And especially, I guess, as you get older, you want to look back and go, am I using my time well? Am I making the most? There's so many things that are kind of vying for our attention. And it's just that so much of the time, I think people fall into the what's easier and more comfortable. So I'm recently remarried. I'm married to an amazing woman called Amanda, and we watch a lot of series. Our series watching is quite interactive. So it's not just sitting vegging. We're watching Australian MasterChef, and we pause it and have conversations. And so it is a good connection point. But we've recently instituted Monday night screen-free nights. And if we don't make that like an official thing, then we'll just watch series all the time. And so now on Mondays, we sit and we do a big catch up. We're both trying to get back into our books that we're reading. I love doing Sudoku. We had a jigsaw puzzle that we've just recently finished. We go on walks. We've got an annual card to Kirstenbosch. And so it just forces us to find other things that are not just the go-to, which is greater for connection, great for building our relationship. And then in terms of reading, just building your own kind of knowledge and expertise. So I think reflection is important because in any like if we don't change something, if we're not thinking differently, if we're not acting differently, then we just keep on going through the motions. And unless our motions are absolutely incredible and completely transforming the world, and we want to keep going through those motions, there are probably always ways that we can improve a little bit, tweak a little bit, and be treating ourselves and other people a lot better. So I think constant reflection is so important. It's so easy to get stuck into we do that thing because we've always done that thing, and if that's not a good thing, then that can be really harmful.
And this speaks to like living in the moment, am I correct? Where you just said like you were having a screen-free Monday, so that you can spend the remaining time you have with your loved ones, because you just never know when might be the final day, right? And on the episode, you also mentioned that, or rather you didn't mention, you asked the listeners what they do to quiet down. And I ask myself, because I really don't quiet down or consciously seek to quiet down myself. What I do is organizing, but if I were to say that I quiet down, would be to take my organizing to the maximum, you know. That's how I tend to ground myself and be aware of everything. And also I've found out that quieting down breeds creativity, you know. Like for example,
Yeah.
this podcast, the concept was came out while I was just grounding myself, listening to my inner thoughts and being creative. And that's how I came up with Friendlyzation. But yeah, and actually Friendlyzation was not inspired by podcasts, I must say. It was inspired by radio, talk radio. And I figured, well, so why not just get into podcasting? But yeah, and you have a stuffed animal named, a stuffed dolphin named No Bob, spelled capital letter N underscore and a lowercase Bob. You were very specific on that. And you got it in 2000, way before I was born. That was a long time ago. Is No Bob still alive?
Oldest stuffed toy in the world. I actually have him right here.
Oh, wow.
Looks like he needs another go in the washing machine, but
Well, hello there, No Bob.
yeah.
I'm so glad I get to meet him, because No Bob has met some of the like very famous people, like the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Nobel laureate. I mean, no stuffed animal in the world can, you know, say that they have met the person who coined the phrase "the Rainbow Nation." That was fantastic to see. And probably if you were to, I don't know, go to Antiques Roadshow, if you decide to give No Bob away, I'm sure No Bob would fetch upwards of 20,000 rands, because he has lived quite a life.
Yeah, so the Bishop Tutu story was amazing actually, because it's a silly thing, right? I started using Nobob when I was doing a lot of speaking at Christian events, and part of it was to mystify. I like to be intentional. So you've heard that, probably, the reflective thing. I like
Yes.
to do things with intention. And part of walking around with a stuffed dolphin, and I used to color my hair purple, blue, green, whatever, was this idea that if people are sitting in the audience listening to me and being blown away and getting a lot of stuff from it, then there's a hope that they will think, okay, this is God that is speaking to me, not this random dude with a dolphin. So it was to demystify. In a lot of Christian spaces, the speaker is the holy man of God, or the person you put on a podium, and I just don't want that. My focus as a follower of Jesus is to point people towards Jesus, and so that's where Nobob came into being. And part of, I think, I got to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It was a re-looking at the document from the church, the Kairos document. They had a meeting in Stellenbosch a couple of years ago, probably close to 10 years ago now, I guess. And I was at this meeting for a couple of days, and then right at the end, everyone had a chance to go meet him, and people, every single person was taking selfies and taking photos. And part of my, I don't know if it's arrogance or bravado or just being irritating, is to try and kind of pull other people down that are on pedestals. And I don't think Archbishop Desmond Tutu
Yes.
needed that. But that sense of like, I don't want to give in or buy into this idea of everyone else kind of like idealizing and putting me up there. So instead of going in for a photo, I was like, can I get a photo of you and my dolphin? And Archbishop Desmond Tutu being Archbishop Desmond Tutu was just like I don't think he knew what to do with it, but he was so gracious, and I think that really for me just kind of personified him for me. This is a man who really is about serving and is about humility, and he offered and gave so much to South Africa, and so I think even though it was me being a little bit silly, that the photo is iconic. But just the idea that he could have easily been like, "Don't you know who I am? Get away with me, or get away from me."
Yes.
But even that, he leaned into it. He was the person of the people, and I think that moment for me just helped that really click home. I had the same kind of thing with Dale Steyn once watching cricket, and happened to be in the same spot. And like I'm sure everyone just wants to have his photo. And I was like, "Can I get a photo of you and my dolphin?" He was like, "Yeah," and he did like a whole cool pose with it. So I think people have been a bit mystified, but No Bob has certainly got around a little bit.
It's very interesting when you see someone as big as Archbishop Desmond Tutu be like, you know what, it's fine. Let's just do this. This is fun. Let's not take everything serious because life is already serious. So why not? Let me take a picture with this yellow, white dolphin stuffed animal. And surely he was like, my goodness. I'm glad there are people like this guy who are like,
Weird.
yeah, weird, but in a good
Quirky.
way. Because having to be
Yeah.
in a very small space, or any space rather, with people who are uptight, it becomes uncomfortable. And now you met this archbishop who was very welcoming.
And probably a breath of fresh air. Like you've had to take photos with 1,000 people, and then someone comes with a dolphin. It's like, yeah, let me
And
do
very
that. That's
different.
something new. So hopefully he had a little smile and a little story when he got home as well.
Yeah. And not only that, No Bob also met the band Jars of Clay. Well, it was my first time reading about the band. I went on to YouTube, listened to some of their songs, very nostalgic. And No Bob also met the creator of the board game Katten, the late Klaus Tauber. Teuber. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. How was it? How was meeting him?
Yeah, I mean, when was it? 22. So 3 years ago, I got to compete in the World Catan Games. And Catan is a strategic board game that a lot of people know as Settlers of Catan. That's how it used to be called. And they just recently rebranded. And so I got to represent South Africa because I was the national champ, and got to compete with people from, I think it was 37 different countries. And that was his last world event that he did, because he sadly died, I think, last year. And so I got to meet him. He also, just like Desmond Tutu, I think he used to be a dentist, and he invented this board game that suddenly sold 22 million copies. And suddenly
Whoa.
there's a whole like establishment, there's a family business. It just came out of nowhere. But both at the start and the end of this competition, he spoke. And just kind of his heart was to bring people around the table, and to bring families together. And so again, like it was that sense of, and of course that guy is going to be a guy who says yes to a picture of a
Of
stuffed
course,
dolphin,
of
because
course.
he just embodies it. So it was incredible. It was such an honor to have that moment to meet him, knowing that a year or two later he's passing on. And just such an amazing opportunity meeting people from around the world that love the same thing you do. And so it was just a complete vibe.
Oh man. No Bob needs to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. That doll,
They need a stuffed dolphin Hall of Fame, right? Or stuffed animals Hall of Fame. You can go
100%.
next to Paddington and whoever else is.
Very famous figures there. Okay, so now let's talk your upbringing, right? You grew up in Joburg, but you then moved to Cape Town. Tell me, what was the reason? And also, how are the two cities? Is like, do you guys get load shedding as much as we do here in Gauteng, in the Western Cape, or is it exclusive for some of us?
Yeah, we haven't had load shedding here for a very long time. I got some personal load shedding this week because I think there was water flowing into my garage and it short circuited
I
the
am so sorry
electricity.
to hear about that.
But our general load shedding has gotten a little better for the last year or last 6 months. But actually, I grew up in Kensington in Johannesburg near Eastgate. And then at the end of primary school, my dad, who was a pastor, moved to a job in Cape Town. So I didn't really have any choice in it. And at the time, I was really sad because Joburg was all I knew.
Mhm.
But once you get to Cape Town and you see how beautiful it is and everything that's here, you soon realize that it's not the worst thing in the world. But I get to come to Joburg about once a year, maybe twice a year, because the organization I work with, Heartlines, we do a once a year kind of staff get together, and so I've got to kind of see the place. The one thing that stands out for me is traffic lights that don't work. and homeless people directing traffic, which is for people in Cape Town is such a bizarre thing to see. I feel like it happens everywhere there now, so it must feel a bit maybe a bit more normal to you guys. But it's like, what is going on
I
here?
just figured like everything that happens in Joburg should somewhat be a blueprint for the rest of the country. What happens in Joburg surely should happen in Cape Town or not.
No, unfortunately, Cape Town is the most racist province in the country. I will say that with absolute conviction in terms of especially people from Joburg who come and spend any time here. That's something that they notice quite quickly. And that's something that both in my work and in my private time, like I'm doing everything I can to educate white people, to have conversations, to kind of move people towards justice there. But Joburg and Cape Town are very different. I think the business vibe of Joburg often pulls people of different races together, so people are working a lot more closely together. Whereas Cape Town, we still have the kind of apartheid, geographical apartheid. So there's your white areas and your black areas and your colored areas. There is a bit of a mix and it has shifted a bit, but there's still predominantly that, which means it's quite easy to live in a bubble, in a white bubble, and feel like you're living in a white country, which is bizarre because white people make up 7% of the country's people. How is it possible to live here and feel like it's a white country? And so there's so much work. So Cape Town is the best of places. Naturally, the nature here is phenomenal.
Yes.
Joburg, if you're comparing a mine dump to Table Mountain, you're going to lose that every day of the week. But in terms of the race work and the community work and poverty stuff, there's so much work that needs to be done here. And so I don't love that, but that is one of the reasons why I feel like it's important that I stay here and I stay responsible in terms of what can I do to have any kind of movement in that stuff and help make it better for all South Africans to have the same kind of advantages that white people get naturally, for example.
You know what? I was gonna ask if you might ever reconsider coming back to Joburg, and after you just said that, I think I'm glad you chose to stay there so that you can do the good work that you're doing. And you mentioned your dad was a pastor in Joburg.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to know from you is, was he the architect of you being faithful in God, or was it your own revelation that made you be like, okay, this is what I believe, these are my convictions, God is the true answer for me?
Sure, that is such a good question. I feel like I could give you the hour-long answer. I'll try keep it short. I think it's both and. Um, if you look at my father's faith and how it plays out, and you look at my faith and how it plays out, it is very, very different. Um, my dad has a big focus on local church, where I have a big focus on global church, like the church, in all the places and spaces. But the heart and the essence of it, loving people, justice, looking after people. I don't know anybody that is as kind of loving and gracious and generous as my dad and my mom. If I told him like I met you, and then you said, "Oh, my friend Jock is in the hospital," my dad would go visit him. Like third degree, doesn't know the person, but friend of a friend of a friend. Cool, he'll be in hospital. Or like that's what he would be. Like I don't know anyone that visits people as much as my dad used to. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 3 years ago, so he's a lot less mobile than he used to
Sorry to
be.
hear about
But
that.
even now, he'll find opportunities behind the computer, the neighbors, he'll find opportunities to do that. So our faith overlaps, I think, in the heart of it. But how it plays out, like in terms of my activism, in terms of especially online stuff that I do, in terms of kind of the challenging leaders in the church, the challenging white people, how vocal that can get sometimes, is in most ways quite different to him. But he was also known for standing out and in his denomination getting into trouble. He wasn't like a hectic activist, but he lived out the essence of things that I've taken up and tried to kind of hold, if that makes sense. So we never spoke. That he was of the generation of kind of we don't speak to kids about issues,
Yes,
which
right.
is which is a pity for me. It's a bit of a regret, but he lived out this thing of anti-racism. So we had black people, colored people in our house. We had people staying with us. There was no different treatment of people, which is incredible. But unfortunately, we never had those conversations and why the country's like this and what does the Bible say about that. So I came to that quite a lot later in terms of being able to name it and realize my space in it and all the activism side of things. But in terms of modeling, in terms of reaching out to people, making a difference to people, so I think you can maybe hear why I say there's a lot of it that was him. But I made a commitment. I mean, I prayed a prayer when I was 5 years old, but it was pretty much end of grade 11 that I made a commitment that was, if I believe in this thing, it has to be my whole life. It can't be something I believe and then I do what I want. It's like it has to be 24/7. And that's been an amazing commitment. Not always easy, and I don't necessarily get it right, but realizing that it can't be part-time. I think a lot of people live part-time Christianity, and
Yes.
Sunday looks very different from Monday to Saturday. But for me, Monday to Saturday has to reflect Sunday. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time on Sunday. So I'm super grateful for both my parents and the way they modeled how to love people well. And I've had to kind of figure out my own faith around that and add to it and build on it from there.
Yeah, your dad and my late grandmother, I think they are two peas in a pod. They are like of the same generation. Never talk about anything. You just have to know that whatever she meant, she implied, and that's how it is. That's how it goes. And so, with your activism and these social justices that you are pursuing, do you not somehow feel like you are overextending yourself, like exhausting too much energy, focusing on other issues besides your own?
Sure. So I don't know that I'm doing any rescuing of other people or any fixing of things. I think for me it comes to like one of the most ridiculous things for me is that I was in America probably about 15 years ago. I went to work with an NGO there with my previous wife, Val, and I went over and we ended up staying for 3 years working in two NGOs for 18 months. And it was over there that I was kind of conscientized or woken up to kind of the activism side of Christianity, the justice side of it. And so it always is silly to me that I had to go to America to learn how to live well in South Africa.
Now the roles
But I
are
remember
reversed.
flying back to South Africa.
The
Eh?
roles are now reversed. You should come to South Africa to
Yeah,
learn
that's
about
nuts, eh?
activism now.
Yeah, we should be sending people there for sure. But it was flying back home. I realized I came to the decision I can't live in South Africa and not be actively involved in areas of race and redress, reconciliation, all that kind of thing. And especially not in addition to my faith, but the bottom line of the Christian faith is love your neighbor as yourself. And you can't love your neighbor. So this in answer, like direct answer to your question, why don't I just keep to myself? I can't honestly follow Jesus without loving my neighbor. And if there are systems and structures and groups kind of oppressing my neighbor, or if there are situations oppressing my neighbor, then I've got to be speaking into those and doing what I can to make a difference, because otherwise my living in a bubble is going to be fake anyway. So it has to be lived out. And I don't know how much difference I'm actually making. I don't know how much transforming is there, but I know that there's a call that I have to be doing what I can. And that generally does look like being on the edges of my little world. So who are the people I'm connected to on social media? Who are the people, my physical neighbors that I have contact with? The work I do takes me into Cape Flats and townships here. Like, where are those spaces where I can step in and hopefully be part of change with the people that are there? So I think I like that language more. Rescuing sounds like I swoop in and do the rescuing, but I think it's really about walking alongside people and seeing how together we can live better than each of us were kind of living individually beforehand.
Wow. Okay. How do we say that? Amen. And so you like building up to this whole experience of you being faithful, and you ended up writing a book titled I Church, right? Which was published 10 years ago. Of course, I didn't get a chance to read it, but do you mind taking me through like what made you write this book? What were your intentions, and what did you think you achieved by writing and ultimately publishing this book?
Yeah, and the book itself, I think it was about 15 years. Like, I wrote a lot of a book and then I picked it up 5 years later and then I picked it up again and then eventually got to the point where I could self-publish, and that happened soon after we got back from America, which is why if I wrote that book again today, there's a whole justice and race section missing from it. So I still stand by everything that's there, but I hadn't quite figured out that stuff yet. So I would definitely do a lot more.
Sure.
But the original title that I had for the book was If Your Christianity is Easy, You're Doing It Wrong. And then later it morphed into iChurch, and it's I, comma, church, the idea that I am the church. This notion of if you went to Jesus' disciples and say, where are you going to church on Sunday? They wouldn't
Also,
understand, because
church
they're
is not
like,
a
church
place.
isn't a place we go
Right.
to. It's the people. And if I am the church, then whatever happens on Sunday is good, but then it will happen Monday to Saturday because I will be the church with my business colleagues. I will be the church with my wife. I will be the church online and hopefully on the hockey field, which is maybe where I struggle the most to be the church, if I'm
Yes.
honest. And so it was just a refining of that process. I felt early on that I prayed to God and I really had a sense. I'm not someone that says a lot, like this is what God told me. But I really had a sense that God was saying, put the book on the shelf. And so I left it for something like 10 years. And I would have loved to have it published before, but I just had a sense of like, God's not telling me to do this
Yeah.
now. And then when we came back, I had the means and the opportunity. And so I rewrote a bunch of stuff and got it ready and self-published. And it's been quite a weird thing. Like a lot of the things I kind of put my hand to, it's like the people that discover it really dig it, but most people don't discover it. So there's been small pockets of individuals and groups that have found it really helpful, but it hasn't kind of soared into the stratosphere or become a bestseller or had lots of people like changing their lives over it. But I do think there's some helpful guidance in there in terms of us thinking a little bit differently about church, especially when it comes to religion and actually like how do we move more into a faith that is living and breathing and affects the people around us.
We'll be right back. And we're back.
Back to what you mentioned that you got married to the beautiful Amanda, and you got married actually this year. So do you mind like sharing, let's just say, a wild card story of the two of you?
Yo, where do I start? So many things come to mind, but we got married 4 months ago, and then we went on honeymoon. Like we had a few days then, but we had a kind of delayed honeymoon about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where we drove all the way up to Durban, Beaufort West, Bloemfontein, Durban, and then came back through the Eastern Cape. And the second day, so it would have been going from Beaufort West to Bloemfontein. And this was Amanda's idea. Like she wanted to do this before we got married. She's like, "Oh, we're gonna do this thing." So I was like, "Cool." We dressed up in our wedding gear. So she bought her wedding dress, and I bought my jacket and my shoes, and we drove the whole day in our wedding gear. We stopped at Wimpy with her in a wedding dress. We got the Wimpy people to take photos, and then we stopped at various sites along the way. So there was a windmill, there was this really rural kind of dorpy. We like drove into the space, and there was a broken wall, and I took photos of her sitting in the wall. So we had like photo shoots, or we had trucks going past, like hooting their horns at us, and cars like hooting as well. And so that is the playful nature that really typifies our relationship. That we have a lot of fun together, and that was like I loved the idea when she said it. It's like sure, I dress up all the time in different contexts, so that was a whole lot of and taking something that could be like normal. She loves road trips, but taking something that could be like a boring day in the car and just like every single stop becomes an adventure. So that was a lot of fun.
Would you say like marriage has somewhat changed anything about your life? Has it changed anything, or have you remained the same? Are you a different person you are today from when you or before you met Amanda?
Yeah, so I think I kind of like alluded to it earlier that I was married to Val for 12 years. About 15 years ago, it ended 3, 4 years ago. And then I had the three hardest years of my life. She didn't want to be married anymore. We got divorced, and so that was very lonely and confusing and hard. And yeah, just 3 really hard years. And I don't think in that time I was ever considering, like, I didn't think I'd be married again. That, like, divorce wasn't even in my kind of lectionary. So the idea that it happened, I was a bit shell shocked, I think. But I certainly wasn't thinking of remarriage. Like these were all things that happened to other people out there somewhere. And just the whole journey with Amanda has been so healing. And she's Afrikaans, so that's why her name is Amanda. It's just slightly different sounding. And I spend my life fighting with people about that, so don't worry. But she's just shown me really what it means to be loved and what it means. Like she encourages me to be myself. So I have always been quite out there. I used to do the Argus cycle tour wearing pink tights or fishnet stockings. I like to make people laugh. I like to shake things up. I like to be interesting out of the box and all that. But I think with Amanda, what's been different is that she's really kind of encouraged it and then really added to it. So I used to dress up to meet people at airports, and she's joined me in that. And when her brother was flying in, we literally hired suits because her brother has some hectic work stuff, and we thought he needs to be super encouraged. And so when Mornay came in, I had this giant fly head that was like fully crafted fly head. You could barely like I had these little holes in front, and it was so hard to see. And then she was wearing a horse head, and she could only see out the side of her eyes. So it was hilarious when we were walking through the airport trying to get to the place because we could barely see between us, and everyone else was just seeing like a giant horse and a fly. So we were like a horse fly combination, which I thought was quite fun. And so she just adds to that. She just like one of the things I love the most is making her laugh. We watch series and she laughs at her own jokes way more than she laughs at mine. And watching her find something really funny is incredible for me. It's so joyful. It's so life-giving. And so I think that helps us to both become kids. She works as an educational psychologist, and so she often has really tough situations. She's one-on-one with people. And so to have avenues where you can let off steam, where you can just be silly, where you can have fun with somebody else. And both of us have friends that are like that as well, that just encourage like spaces where we can just be silly. It's so important. It's so vital to allow us to be more serious and more empathetic and more compassion filled when we need to, because we've had time to just kind of fill ourselves in that other way.
Two peas in a pod. Like you
Yeah.
guys are one and the same. And you are also or were a magazine writer. By the way, which magazine did you write? Maybe I might have come across and read some of them.
Yeah, so the magazine writing mostly was a long time ago, so maybe before your time. There was an incredible youth Christian magazine called Truth Mag, but that's probably 20 years ago now. And it came out for 6 or 7 years. Did you ever come across that?
No, the only TRU mag is True Mag that I've come across. I've seen on the shelves. I've seen probably even online. I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
affiliated with News 24.
Yeah, so these are older things. I wrote for a thing called Vision as well that was connected to the DSTV Christian Broadcasting magazine stuff. And then something a little more recently, I wrote for a lot of Scripture Union devotional notes. So there's a book called Closer to God and another one called Cooler. And I've recently just started writing for them again. And then I'm part of a poetry WhatsApp group, and we put out a thing called the Paper Trail Journal once a term. And so that kind of feels like it's linked to what you were talking about in the school, because we've got a bunch of poets and writers and artists, and our work gets collated. There's an amazing young Indian woman in Durban called Ekta Samera, good friend of mine, and she collates this thing around a theme. So you get the theme of maybe youth joblessness, and then people write poems and artwork and things like that, and she puts it together, and they are stunning. So that is something you may see in the future if you haven't seen it yet. But the literary paper trail journal is amazing, and I think it's going to explode. So look out for that, because there's some really amazing people writing for that.
I sure will do. Oh man, you sure do a lot of things. Do you not get tired from all these things that you do? Do you even have a break in your day where you be like, I'm a bit lazy to do this thing, do that thing, because you do a lot. And another thing you do is improv comedy.
Yeah.
And what I understand about improv is that it is unscripted. So everything that you do, it's like acting, but it's more intense in that it's more action and reaction. It is not about anticipating what this person might say, or what's going to happen. Improv, I think it's very insane from my point of view, because it's scary. I mean, it's not like acting, where acting is a bit safe with the script. Improv, you have none of those. How do you know what to do, or how do you know how to react to your, this other character on the show? Do you find it a bit, do you find it scary?
So surprisingly, no. I mean, there's a little bit of fear, and I'll talk about that. But what's interesting is that I'm kind of the opposite of everything you're saying. Like when I was growing up, I did a lot of church plays and things like that.
Oh, right.
I hate rehearsals with a passion.
Oh,
Um, I play very well off an audience. So if I'm doing a preach or if I'm doing improv or whatever, I connect. An audience laughs, I build into that and I work. So I've been wanting to do stand-up comedy for the longest time, because that is my form of comedy. It will be playing off the audience. But the idea of being able to do it once rather than doing the same thing again and again and again and again and again, that for me is life-giving. So there are moments of fear because anything can happen. But in the space of
yeah.
improv, it's really a team sport. So I know that if I'm struggling, there's 5 people waiting on the sides ready to jump in and save me. And that is the heart that takes away any fear. I'm not alone in this. Together we're going to make it work. And because there's no script, it in a sense it can't go wrong. I mean, it can be challenging. We can do better shows than other shows,
Right.
but it can go anywhere. And that is so exciting to me, and it links into so much of what I do in every other spaces. The work I do with NGOs, the work with hotlines, improv is happening all the time because things aren't scripted, right? You have a program and a plan, something goes wrong, you have to pivot and change and do something else. And part of why I'm less scared is because I've been doing it since 1999, which may or
Oh
may
yeah.
not be around when you were born. So once
No.
you've done something for 25 years, it's a habit, it's a skill. I still get nervous before some shows, and we constantly trying new things. So recently we did what did we do for the first time? We did a cabaret. So we made up an entire cabaret from a few suggestions from the audience, and that was terrifying because we'd never tried that style before, but it was also incredible. And I get bored when we do the same thing. So we used to do stuff that's a lot more along the lines of whose line is it anyway? The kind of shorter 3-minute games. And those are fun, but I can kind of do those in my sleep because I've done them so many times. So we constantly saying, what can we try new? What is a different adventure? Back in the day, the improv group I'm part of, I was overseas, so I missed this, but they did a 24-hour soap opera, and people would buy
Whoa.
tickets for 1 hour of the show, and they kept going for a whole 24 hours, and that is nuts. And I wish I'd been there for that. But there's so much. I'm just a very curious person, and it encourages me to ask the question, what if? Like, what if we do things differently? You look at South Africa, we've got the problems with race, the problems with poverty. What if we did this? What if we stopped looting all the money? What if instead of corruption, we got more creative with using the money to do the things it's meant to do? Like, then you start to get excited about what might happen. We can look at all the problems and be like, what's the point? People are going to steal this and that. Or no, in my space, I can make a difference. With these people, how can we start things here? And maybe the neighbors will look at that and go, oh, we can do that. And then slowly a movement starts to happen. And so that's kind of the motivation I have for it. And when you've been working as long as I have with the people I have, you just build trust. And it's like we good at what we do because we've been doing it for so long. And we've got a phenomenal group of we've got a quite a varied group of people that bring so much different stuff. And so it's super exciting to get on that stage. And we can't wait.
Oh
We
boy.
can't wait. It's amazing.
We'll be right back. And we're back.
Have you ever had an incident while doing improv where someone, these things, they catch you off guard, where, a character tends to use more of the cursing word? Because sometimes for some people, it's easy to say the F word, the B word, because this is improv, it's not scripted. People sometimes even use profanity as a way to create humor. Have you had that instance in your shows?
One of the nice things about Improv Guys, which is we used to be called Theatre Sports and we've changed to Improv Guys, and that's GUISE, like disguise, is that we are billed as a family show. I think every now and then there's one show we do that I've never actually done, but they do a show that has slightly more adult themes. I've just always been busy or away, so I just haven't done it. But that means like every occasion you might get a swear word slipping in. It's more likely that you'll get some sexual innuendo or whatever, but it's never, we always know that this audience, if there's children in the audience or whatever, we're playing this as if there's a family there. So I don't have to worry about those things. I've been nervous. What happens if this happens? Do I walk away from it? But I've been doing it for 25 years and I've never had a show where I went afterwards going like, yo, that was a bit rough. And if there were times when it was me being the one to blame in terms of sexual innuendo, in terms of puns and wordplay. Sometimes that stuff is fun and you can kind of get towards the edge and go, no, I need to be a bit better at this. So I've never had to worry in terms of the context and the other people. And people's suggestions, because we get suggestions from the audience.
Yes.
And if we ask for a venue, every person shouts out toilet every time. And it's like, we can do a scene in a toilet, but it's really not going to be that much fun. We all know what happens there. Like, give us a magical forest, give us a deserted island, give us a space station. You will get something far more exciting. And so we learn to take people's suggestions when they get a bit crass or dodgy or whatever, and we'll find another way of inventing it. But the show itself is a beautiful family thing. So that's fortunately not been an issue.
And I'm glad people like it. I've never been to an improv show. I've been to the scripted once in high school at that. It was called Othello. And boy, oh boy, I slept right through. So nope. Do people sleep through improv?
You will not be sleeping through our shows, believe me.
Okay.
Also, because if we ask for suggestions at the beginning and you give us the name of a character or the name of a made-up city, then you invested. It's your show. You are the only audience that are ever going to see any show. Like, we never repeat a show. So if you're sitting there, it's a gift to all of you, good, bad, or ugly. Like, this is your personalized thing. So no, I can't think of a person that's ever fallen asleep because we are loud and crazy and wacky, and it's always a lot of fun.
I should experience it. Actually, let's just, if you don't mind, let's just try to do an improv dialogue right now, because I've never had an experience. I want to see how I can, if I were to be placed in that space, how I would react. Are you up for that?
So let me suggest this, because it is hard to, let's just jump into something, but let's do something that's called a word at a time story.
Okay.
So I will give you the title, and then you will say a word and I will say a word, and we'll craft sentences together and see if we can create a story. Does that sound cool?
Okay. You creating a story or a conflict of some sort?
We just created a little story. So you're only allowed to say one word at a time, and together we're going to make sentences.
Okay, I'm a bit scared. Can I?
No,
Can I?
let's give it a go. Let's see what happens, and let's call this the big party.
The big party.
Are you ready?
I am.
What is a cool name? Let's have a cool character name, and then we'll see what happens with that dude and his party.
Okay, you are Mr. Fish and I am Despair.
Okay. So are you ready? One word at a time.
One word, yes.
It.
Came.
To.
Thunder.
And.
Glory.
When.
Tomorrow.
Mr.
And
Mrs.
Smith.
Decided.
To.
Throw.
It.
They.
And.
Their.
Ooh. I keep on messing it up.
But that's fine. You get the idea. That I mean, you've had not 25 years of this. I threw somebody. My wife and I were doing a course on CV writing yesterday, and I did some of the improv, and I got a guy up on stage, and we did that kind of thing. But it's really about just trusting the person, not trying to think of a whole story.
Yes.
If you're only providing one word, you've got no control. So you have to listen carefully to your partner, and you need to just kind of work together and create a thing. So try it with some friends. Get a group of 4 or 5 friends and work around a circle, and just let everyone provide the next word. Try and make short sentences and build the story and see how it goes. It's really a fun activity. But you should definitely look out. My friend Jess used to run improv shows in Joburg. I'm not sure if she's still doing it, but you should definitely check it out. Or if you're ever visiting Cape Town and there's a show happening, there's a couple of groups that do it in Cape Town. But Improv Guys is definitely one to check out.
And also, I found that you read quite a lot of books, and they are fiction mostly, yes?
So yeah, I've gone through loads of different journeys. One of the biggest lessons I learned in the States was this idea of changing up the voices that inform you. And so what that means for me is I try to read Black writers, I try to read women writers, I try to read people outside of the Christian faith, people from other countries. And so I recently, I think COVID times or post-COVID times, got back into fantasy because I used to read a lot of fantasy as a kid. But then after that, I was reading basically either Christian stuff or justice stuff. And especially after starting my justice journey, I was reading a lot of South African authors, trying to understand the country that I live in, trying to understand about race and justice and things like that. So it's usually a combination of books about race, about Israel, about kind of things that are happening at the moment, and then fantasy. Fantasy helps me to just breathe. You spoke about, like, don't you get tired of doing stuff all the time? Fantasy is a cool place to just lie in that world. And there's an amazing guy called Brandon Sanderson, who I've devoured all of his books. I discovered him during COVID, and he writes books like this thick and is an amazing world creator and magic creator. He creates amazing worlds that make sense in their context. But even recently, I found some Nigerian fantasy, which was really good. And I'm busy reading a book that Amanda gave me for my birthday, which is also fantasy and also written. I think it's by a Ghanaian author. So I've been yeah, and it's been such an amazing journey. It sounds like a chore, like a lesson. Read people that don't look like you. It has been phenomenal, because before I started doing it, I used to naturally just gravitate towards middle-aged white American Christian men. And it wasn't like I go out, I want to find a book by a middle-aged white. Those were just the books I was reading because people I knew were reading those books. And so once I got intentional, then I discovered new authors, I discovered new styles, new perspectives. And so when I'm reading Black voices on race in South Africa, I'm learning so much more than if I just hung out with white people and tried to understand it. And it's been amazing even finding fantasy that's been written by Black voices. So there was a series, a 3-book series by a Nigerian lady that I read recently, and it held all of Africa and it held all of fantasy together, and that was like so amazing, very different to any other fantasy I'd ever read. So I highly recommend that people change up the voices that inform you, and then you start doing it with entertainment and music as well. Like start broadening your scope. If you are a reggae person, listen to some other music, because things can inform you. You can find new styles. We tend to get caught in like this. I like that meal, I'm going to eat that meal for the rest of my life. No, have you tried this? What about so much goodness out there.
We'll be right back. And we're back.
You are involved with the organization Hotlines and you guys' initiative Fathers Matter. It deals with issues like, amongst others, fatherhood, right? The presence and absence of father figures in people's life.
Yeah. I've been with Hotlines since 2015. And we've had 3 programs, but we've really kind of honed in onto the Fathers Matter one at the moment. And what's amazing about it is we've got 7. We used to have 6. We just had a new one released, 7 short movies, so 25 minutes each. And 6 of them have played on SABC last year and the year before. And each one of them deals with a different theme about fatherhood. So we talk about the positive, active presence of men in the lives of children. And the South African statistics are frightening that I think it's last statistics were about 65% of kids, maybe even closing in on 70% of children in South Africa grow up without a father figure in the home. And so when you look at that in depth, it actually is one of the roots of so many things, so many issues in the country. If you look at gangsterism, if you look at homelessness, if you look at poor leadership in the country, like everything can be traced back, or so many of those things can be traced back to the lack of positive, active role models at home. And we talk about Fathers Matter because you walk into a room. We did a thing in Knysna a couple of years ago, 400 matric students, and we said, do mothers matter? Everybody puts up their hand. We said, do fathers matter? And I think 26 kids put up their hands. We don't have to say mothers matter because that's a given. Everyone knows. So obviously our program is about the whole family. Mothers matter, fathers matter. But because fathers haven't mattered either by their actions or because they've been dismissed or because they are in prison or working in different provinces or all these kind of things, we have to first declare fathers matter. It's a thing. We believe in it. We want to see it happen. But also do the work that we can to help fathers to know, to have the skills, to have the knowledge, to have the resources, and then work with women who have maybe created gatekeeping because fathers haven't been present. So they put up gates and then they don't allow the father in. But as fathers are trying to do work better, the women have self-identified to us. Actually, we need to do work on our gatekeeping so that together we can raise children together. And then we talk about social fathers. So I don't have biological kids, but I'm a youth leader, I'm a mentor, I'm an uncle. So I'm fathering or support fathering in all of those spaces. And if we encourage all men to step into gaps, maybe a father has died, maybe a father is in prison, maybe a father's not present, then what are the other men in the community doing? And so we work specifically through churches, but also other spaces where men can come together and say, we will step in where there's a gap, and we will support those who are being fathers and are struggling to be good fathers or whatever. We'll give them support. We'll give them cheerleading. As Heartlines, we create a lot of resources. We've got something called the Fathers Matter Coach, which is basically like a WhatsApp number you put in your phone and you say hi, and then it invites you on a journey. It's like having a coach in your pocket. So I got an SMS or a WhatsApp this morning, just giving a thought about being a dad, or have you thought about playing with your kid, or this or that? And that comes every now and then. But you can also ask it questions. So how do I put a nappy on a kid, or my kid's being bullied? What do I do? And so we've got that free resource because most people have access to WhatsApp. And so we're trying to put the coach into as many people's pockets as possible.
This work you guys are doing is phenomenal, and we really are appreciative of that. And so are you guys able to measure some of the impact this initiative is making? Have you done that Mothers Matter and Fathers Matter game?
Yeah, so we do all the Hotlines programs work on the basis of research. So before we started doing any workshops or presentations for Fathers Matter, we spent a year asking the right questions and doing research. What is needed? What are the gaps and all that kind of thing. And then on the other side, we have two groups. I think there's one in Stellenbosch. The other one might be overseas, actually, that are kind of checking in on the work. So we take registers at meetings, and then people will get a phone call to say, how did you experience this? What's changed in your life? So we really try to make sure. And that's why I mentioned we have 3 programs, but we're moving towards this program. At Heartlines in the last maybe 2 years, we've changed strategy from trying to get as far as possible to go as deep as possible. So we're going to be working with less people, but really doing work that we hope will see definite change. And so we're constantly kind of tweaking the areas to make sure that we can find results, like you're saying. Like it is hard to kind of measure. How do you measure that someone's being a better dad or being more present?
Right.
But by having conversations with people that have attended things, and we're doing a lot of ECD work at the moment as well. So early childhood development, so pre-primary schools with both teachers and parents in those spaces. And that's maybe a little more easier to kind of do some of the measuring. But yeah, we've got a lot of people dedicated to that side of things to help keep us in check and to help the material constantly evolve. I spoke about the gatekeeping thing. When we started doing workshops, we weren't talking about that. And then people in the workshop said, hey, you need to talk about this stuff. So we started doing that. Another thing that came up is this idea of the father wound. And we've created a whole new presentation just around the father wound, because each of us sits with a differing extent of what that means. And I always talk about, when I say father wound in a meeting, no one's ever heard the term before, but everyone instantly knows what it means. Like we know exactly what I'm talking about. And so when we do a father's wound workshop, we have counselors and psychologists on standby, because it gets really emotional. Like people have been deeply hurt, and we haven't all been hurt the same. But if I don't fix the wound that I have with my father, I'm likely to repeat it with my children, and in the people around me. And so those are some of the ways that we kind of do the work that is possible to measure and keep on kind of assessing that we are hitting where it really itches.
Sure. Yeah, that's huge.
And we're around the country. So you can, I mean, our website is heartlines.org.za. So feel free to jump on there. All the movies are available there, so you can take a watch, and they're powerful stories that are kind of set in different communities around South Africa in different languages, all with English subtitles. So they really touch on a bunch of stories that really look like, oh, that's where I live, or that's the issue that's relevant to me. And the encouragement is that, like, you could gather together a bunch of your mates and watch a movie. Like, you don't need a Heartlines person there. The resources are available so that people can grab the stuff and run with it, which is really, really cool. And it's such a privilege because the work is so necessary. But we've got amazing people around the country that are doing this stuff.
And so in closing, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
As a follower of Jesus, I want people to know Jesus' name. So if people forget my name, that's not important. If people are better followers of Jesus, if people love each other better, if the country works better for more of its people. If you ask me my passion in life, I'll always say I'm passionate about seeing people live out what they say they believe. And so if there are more people in life living out what they say they believe, especially people who call themselves Christian, especially people who call themselves justice people, then I think that will be a life well lived. Like if the world looks a little bit better because I was here and people live a little bit better because of it, then I think that'll be job well done.
All right, so season 5 of Out of the Fishbowl out now on Spotify and YouTube, and you can get yourself the book I Church, available on Amazon and Goodreads. Listen, Brett Fish Anderson, it was nice. It was lovely meeting you.
Thank you, Desire. Thanks for this time, and thanks that we got to cover such a range of things. And hopefully there'll be a time when you're in Cape Town, you can come and watch one of our shows.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. All right. Take care.
Cheers, my man. Goodbye.
New episodes out every second week on Fridays. And don't forget to follow Friendly Session on @FriendlySession on your favorite social media platform.